Considering the climate that we've heard about earlier today for women in higher education, it is befitting that two highly accomplished and well-respected thought leaders to engage in dialogue around the future of work and how higher education institutions are poised to best prepare learners for the workforce, thereby contributing to the sustainability and growth of democracy and justice worldwide. Stellar leadership of higher education institutions is tantamount to realizing desired outcomes for the future of work. Ruth Watkins, president of the Strata Education Foundation and former president of the University of Utah, and Ted Mitchell, president of ACE and the former undersecretary for the U.S. Department of Education and the former president of Occidental College, are going to lean in on issues significant to each of us this evening. In preparation for this discussion, President Mitchell convened 2 listening sessions with women across this country. Both Ted and Ruth sing from the same hymn book. Can you tell I'm from the church? That conveys the message that Ted shared last December: never underestimate misogyny. Ted and Ruth.
So Kim introduced the evening by quoting Bob Iger and talking about Disney. And so I would love it if you could tell me and tell Ruth, if you were to describe your personal and professional journey, which ride would it be? So I'll take a minute, and I have this magic thing that you're all going to appear on in seconds. But while we wait, I do want to introduce Not Ann to you. Yeah, you got to stand up. You got to stand up. So Not Ann is really Nicolette Dixon from TIAA, who's the senior director of strategic client engagement. And we're really happy to have you, and thank you for all your help and your support. Okay, that done. Roller coaster. For us Disney folks, you got to go deeper than that. Which one? Anybody for Space Mountain? Yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Yeah, oh good, we got a Mr. Toad. The Teacups is one. Random stochastic energy distributed in crashes, yep. It's a Small World, boy, I want your life. Space Mountain, got another Space Mountain, this is all good. Okay, so Ruth, I'm not gonna ask you which ride, but I think it would be a great idea if you wouldn't mind starting off sharing a little bit about your journey. And it's not just the University of Utah, it's other institutions, it's a career as a researcher, teacher, faculty member. How did you get where you are today?
Thank you, Ted. And first, let me just say what a privilege and an honor it is to be in this room. There are so many talented people here. I'm humbled by you, and really think this will be a lot more fun if you're participating. So we will not talk at you, but instead want to hear about what your interests are and how this conversation can be helpful to you. So I know Ted's planning that. I say sometimes, like, who in the world would have thought I would have had the opportunities that I've had? I certainly know that for everyone I've had, there are many other talented people who very likely would have performed better or as well, and I am keenly aware that I certainly did not imagine a career where I would move into academic leadership either as quickly or as progressively as I did. I grew up in a little town of 1,000 people in Iowa. Are there any other fellow Iowans here? All right, way to go. Oh, awesome. So, I certainly did not expect that I would, and even graduate school was quite a journey, right? Where your family's saying, now, when are you gonna get done? And what is it exactly that you're studying? And is that familiar to anybody? Why is this taking so long? And are you kidding? Are you still at it? so I really, my first faculty job was at University of Texas at Dallas. I'm a Midwesterner, so I got to the University of Illinois in Champaign just as fast as I could. And it was a great place for me. I had incredible opportunities, great mentors, very happy, successful faculty life. And I got tenure, and I thought, okay, this is awesome. Big lab, lots of students, got my first NIH grant, had some Department of Ed grants, thought this is sailing along well. And the dean came and said, I really need you to be the associate dean. And I said, oh, no, not me. This is going great. I just actually had met the guy who became my husband. It was all just going swimmingly. And I had a bunch of doc students. I was very busy, and I thought, finally, I've arrived. And she said the most interesting thing to me. She said, and she was not actually a great mentor. I won't go into too much more detail than that. But she was absolutely right about this one thing. And she said, Ruth, this is exciting now, and pretty soon, like, getting another grant will become a little bit old. You are a person who's sort of destined and fit for leadership. And you will get bored with doing this. You're kind of a natural leader of people. And I can see this better than you can see this yourself. And she was absolutely right. Because then and that's an important thing for all of us, and it kind of reminded me of your great story about Umbrella. Every one of us, every single day, has the opportunity to see the talent around us and say things to people that really changes their life. And it turned out to be quite difficult to work for that particular person. I learned a lot, though. And I also, to this day, owe her an incredible debt, because she created that opportunity for me. I became an associate dean, and then an associate provost, and a vice provost, and a dean, and provost, and a president. I said, I have not been the athletic director, but most everything else I have done at a university. And so I think it is good to think about what those opportunities we all have every single day to talk to the people around us about the talent that they have and how we can help open doors. You never know. I hear the most amazing stories. You do too, I'm sure, from students. And sometimes they're heartbreaking stories. And they'll go like this. The person will say, somebody told me I wasn't good at this, and I believed it. And I closed off that door, or some very casual thing that happens at a university. Certainly have seen many students just heartbroken and sobbing and saying, I knew I didn't belong here. I knew this wasn't for me, because somebody said something to them that just had this incredible negative impact. So I guess one kind of good takeaway for all of us, wherever we are, every day there's a leadership opportunity, and every day you want to use it when you can, because you never know when you'll be the one that creates that opportunity for somebody else.
So how have you helped other people? Who are some of the people that you've had that either casual or very intentional conversation with?
I have lots of opportunities for this. I really feel like, are there any search firms in here? Yes, of course, AGB's in here. You guys all owe me, because I do reference calls like every week. I think one of the privileges of being senior citizen is you know a lot of people and you have a deep network. And honestly, I feel like this is such a privilege where I get to help a lot of people on their career journey. And I love doing it. It is an honor and a privilege. And it's quite rewarding, too, to see the people around you. I will say, in an organization that is a national nonprofit, Strata Education Foundation, I have a lot of opportunities to help people that are looking for ways to make a difference in an entity that's running alongside higher ed, trying to support higher ed, in a place that has not had a deep culture of mentoring and leadership. And it has been striking how much difference you can make, and how difficult it is in some ways for an organization that has multiple physical locations and a remote culture, and how deep the need is in those settings to do that kind of professional development and outreach. So I'm proud of my doctoral students that are now becoming department chairs and deans themselves, that are out in the world leading in various places. and just feel like I've had an enormous privilege of supporting a lot of people on their leadership journeys, and I'll keep doing it as long as I get the calls from AGB Search and anywhere else.
So you probably get the idea that Ruth is an incredible mentor, and I have benefited from Ruth's friendship and mentorship, so I can testify to that. Ruth, looking back over your career, you made it sound a little bit too automatic. Were there times when you were that person who somebody said to you, you can't do this, or you've come far enough, or when you, most of all, sort of doubted yourself? And if so, how'd you work through that?
You know, I think probably a little less overt maybe, but more covert, which in a way is maybe harder. When you can, like, it's always like a calculation, like how candid to be in these environments. Probably not totally candid, right? So we'll hold back just a touch on that. But you know, I do
Anthony,
think, yeah.
cut.
Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit more like I'm a pretty patient person, and also like just kind of generally believe you're gonna win people over a lot more with sort of helpful, like just trying to stay with it, steady, be relevant, be useful, try to everybody who's kind of presenting you with some sort of challenge or problem, try very, very hard to help them solve it and to figure out how to do that. And what you observe over time is that you might start out particularly sort of being left out of things, or maybe there's a sort of a feeling that you're not quite in the club or trusted or brought to the table. But you actually will watch that change over time as you listen, participate, add value, and stay with it. And I mean, I could say that for myself, that, you know, certainly in my early days in the provost's office, it was pretty much 100% male and relatively limited diversity of any kind. And I noticed that it would be like the three guys would go in the office and close the door, and there'd be like big things, pronouncements would then come out without much consultation of the people that were actually going to have to do it, which lesson for me, right? I mean, you really want to listen to the people that are going to have to do the work every day to make something happen. Like, is this a good idea, a bad idea? Is this going to work? Is it going to actually help the students? Is it going to lead to the outcome we think it will? And that was not, I know, was not malicious. It was just thoughtless. And, you know, I guess that doesn't maybe sound that much better. Sorry. Hopefully it's off. But I think, you know, it was a long time ago. So, you know, I think we were all learning how to be more inclusive, and that ideas actually get better when people don't always agree with each other, and that there's a little testing. And also, the more inclusive the conversation, the better the solution. And particularly when the people that are actually going to have to do the heavy lift have some voice. So, yeah, I would say, you know, no horrible stories on that, but, you know, kind of that, like, okay, we're going to have to stay with it.
Three guys going into a room, closing a door, and coming out with a decision. That seems pretty overt to me. But
well, you know, I was trying to see the best in people. It's another way to live. We keep going every day.
So as a president, you always had the reputation of working with people and bringing interesting groups together to solve problems, people who might not have thought they even had any role to play in that. How did you do that, and how do you think it helped you establish yourself as a leader?
So that is like one of my favorite things. Like people that see the world differently because of their lived experience. And at the University of Utah, I think one of the biggest elements of untapped potential was the fact that there are only about 25 institutions in the country that have a major undergraduate, main campus, and all the traditional disciplines, and a big academic medical center that they own and operate on the same physical footprint. And I would say at Utah, it was completely underutilized. It was as if there was a giant gap between these two parts of the campus, and very little interaction, very little kind of partnership, very little shared academic program, and less even research shared programming. What an incredible opportunity, and it turned out to not be all that hard. You know, to create opportunities. We had a transformative excellence cluster hiring program that required people to bridge what we called the one university for Utah kind of effort. And it really created a very great dynamic change. So it was a very reinforcing thing for me. I guess I did that as provost with others, many others. We did that. And it was a very powerful experience about, wow, if we can figure out how to bridge some of these divides, this is how this institution will rise and how we'll be better.
You know, from an organizational theory point of view, the other thing that you did is you didn't take the established decision-making process as sacrosanct and allow those decisions to follow the same channels all the time. You went horizontal on them, and you created your own decision tree independent of that old boys, perhaps, networks. So very smart. We have a couple questions, and please, whenever a question comes to mind, put it in, and I'll curate them up here. We probably won't have a specific Q&A. I think that this is all going to be as interactive as we can make it. Ruth, along these same lines, someone's asked for an example of a challenging situation you dealt with where you failed, small f, but learned a lot.
Well, of course, this is the dreaded question, because I have so many things I could say. How long do you have? You know, I will say, always learning, and I can say there are a number of things that I thought would work better than they did. And even if we took that particular example of the cluster hiring program, I will say that I learned a lot about what it takes to make that work well. And if I were doing it again, I would have so much better evaluative capabilities. Because without somebody who is a steady thought leader who's going to keep that thing going, it will not work when you're trying to do cross-disciplinary hiring and move. Because of the dozen or so of those we did, half of them really thrived. And the ones that thrived had the passionate thought leader in the faculty who was going to be the champion and stay with it. So I think we could have used those dollars more wisely if I knew then what I knew now. And so there's an example. I will also say in leadership, there is no more important time for the fact that so many of you are interested and you're here because you're interested. Despite the narrative, Ted and Freeman Rabowski wrote this wonderful piece on why now and why leadership this week, right? And it is so great and so encouraging to see the talent here. In these times, your roles are more important than they've ever been. And there's also just a tremendous opportunity for leadership to move now. So when I think about some of the things that didn't work as well, some of the things that were particularly difficult, we did at Utah have a couple of very, very difficult issues. One of them with campus safety and a very tragic murder of a student. And it's just heartbreaking tragedy. And certainly through that process, painful, difficult learning through kind of resolution of those difficult issues. But there are so many lessons learned in that difficulty that I think put a lot of things into perspective in life and in leadership. So that the lessons are good and hard, and all of it makes you a stronger, better leader if you're paying attention. What you really love is the lessons you learn vicariously by watching other people. So you've all got those too, and I think that wise people are looking and learning around them all the time for, how can I take something from this thing I observed? I don't have to do it myself or be in it. So we'll put that on the list as well.
And there are two. This is the second time we call this a network for a reason. One is the sort of mentorship and helping people along with their careers that you mentioned earlier. And the second is sharing experiences so that we don't have to all completely reproduce each other's mistakes, just partially.
It's all good.
But but it's good. Ruth, let me take you to the more recent part of your career. You made a decision to leave the academy after an illustrious run. What was that like? What were the trade-offs that you had thought
Yeah.
about?
So Eileen and I were visiting about this, and I will say, I really thought I was ready to not, to sleep a little better at night and to not have quite so much. I heard somebody laugh in the back, you know that feeling, right? And so, made the decision to step away, and then discovered that a couple of good lessons. One of them is wherever you go, you're taking yourself along. And guess what? That person that wakes up at 3 in the morning still wakes up at 3 in the morning. Are you kidding me? What a ripoff. Like, who knew? And you know what you wind up doing is that same sort of work, success oriented, I got to help all the people, so much to do. You still do it. It's the weirdest thing. So lesson number one of it is, I think, to say, you want to develop some strategies and skills to navigate through this, because this is actually in us. It's not the job necessarily doing it to you. It's who we are as people, with this motivation to make a difference, to do good work, to help the people around us, to not forget that we're supposed to answer an email from somebody. I mean, this is kind of crazy, right? But if you're sort of motivated at trying to really do a good job and use your time as well as you can to make a difference, it does kind of haunt you when you forget to do something. So that probably is going along with you when you step away from a job. I think, and I will say it was quite unsettling at first, because I began to realize that I had built my entire life, almost, for 35 years around the university. First the University of Illinois, then the University of Utah. And when, especially Dean, Provost, President, as Dean of a very large college, Marjorie's College,
Yay.
College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Larry's, all right. That is such a good story.
That's another marker on the mentor trail.
It is. It's awesome. And it becomes your social life. It's what you do all day Saturday and Sunday. You're going from football game to arts event to donor dinner to whatever. And you kind of realize, wow, I've got to figure out what I'm supposed to do here and how to use my time. Good thing that Strata Education Foundation was there and has really, I think, been a good opportunity for me to use knowledge and relationships and kind of a deep understanding of how higher ed works and how change can happen and innovation can happen in institutions, and be able to use those relationships to support your good ideas and your good work. And I've heard a lot of them tonight. We were talking a little bit about the importance of internships and internships as a way to connect students from what they learn academically into the bridge to work. And we get to do a lot of that work at Strata. We have a primary research group. So as it turns out, you can take those talents that you've honed and use them in other settings, and hopefully go from having this deep, intense focus in a single institution to supporting a whole lot of ideas and institutions with a goal towards scale. And that's quite rewarding once you get the hang of it. At first, slightly unsettling. The first thing you miss is your kind of like your handler, right? I mean, the person that's like, you're supposed to be here at 8 o'clock. Go do this. Now, that was quite unsettling. It was just me and my husband, who's horrible as a handler. He has many bad ideas about what to do with time. So, so we've kind of gotten a better groove now once we got going.
So I want to go back to internships as a way into a lot of the work that brought you to Strata and that you've been doing. One of the things that I know is, in addition, I saw you get a little bit edgy and restless about some of the things that the university wasn't doing. Yeah. And not just the University of Utah, but the academy generally. And one of them was this seeming force field between the world of academia and the world of work. And you have, from your time at Utah, really been helping to push us in that direction. And now at Strata, you've been able to do more of that. You mentioned internships. How do you see internships unlocking some of that?
So I just want to say, I've never met Donna Shavlik. Did I get that right? But what a great letter she wrote, wouldn't you say? Like beautiful, moving, powerful, that kind of says the values of the academy really matter, and they matter today more than ever. This is very fundamental good in American society. We need to pursue that, continue that, double down on that work. And none of that means that we don't innovate, change, or think about new ways to do things. In fact, I bet if she were here, she'd be saying, go, 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 do more. Think about how you can expand and have impact. So when you look at certain parts of the academy, you can say actually all of the academy, we often set things up as a this or this. And as in, no, we don't do technical education in universities. We prepare, I've said this myself, I'm sad that I've said this now. We don't prepare people for their first job. We prepare people to create their fifth job, right? And the truth of the matter is, of course we do. And we can also help them get a good first job. Because as it turns out, if people don't get a good first job, they have a much less likelihood of securing that college level job. I'm not sure if it was always that way. I'm just hoping that I didn't put people on a bad path when I said don't worry that much about your first job, because I think I did say that a few times as an arts and science dean, but to say you'll get that great job in a little while. Well, it isn't true today. We really need to think about what we can do in the academy to help more people fulfill the promise of higher education, to secure a job that requires a degree, to make their way to a middle income salary and a secure economic mobility and economic stability. And none of that runs counter to the values of a liberal arts education. None of that means that teaching people to write, solve problems, and communicate doesn't matter. Of course it does. It's the very thing that's going to help them as they move up. And it does not need to run in counter to skills, technical abilities, professional capabilities, being able to make your way in the workplace. So when we look at entry jobs, college level jobs, the biggest protective factor for people is having had a paid internship. So the thing that matters, the highest driver of securing a college level job is the field of study that you pursue, but right behind it is having a paid internship. We want students to study history, English, language, art, music, whatever they want to. And we can also help ensure that they're prepared. Paid internships, a powerful way to do that. Now, let's talk a little bit about the practical realities of that. First thing I would say is who gets the paid internships? After you control for every other variable, white men, far more, women, less, African American and Hispanic students, less. So first thing we have to do is think about how do we more equitably distribute those great internships. All of us can say, anybody in here who's been part of an arts and science college or ran an honors college, yeah, I think my batteries are going out, but I'm just carrying right on. Carrying away. Thank you. We know, I feel there's so many things to feel sad that you didn't do quite as well as you could have. But how many of you have had somebody say to you, could you help my kid get an internship? Or could you help my kid get a job? Or what about this or that? And of course, we know that that's the way this inequality perpetuates, right? So what if we had a world where we gave our best experiences and we made sure that our best experiences got to Pell Grant recipients, got to the people who were first in their family to attend college, right? How about that for a game changer? Instead of people whose parents went to college, know somebody who'll get their kid that best internship. So I could see how this could make a huge difference in the world if we could make it more systematic. Now, you might be saying, wow, my college has 50,000 students in it. I don't have enough paid internships for 50,000 students. True. So what could you do, right? You could say, first, who will benefit most? Let's give our best experience to the people who will benefit most. Second, everyone in this room has student employees on your campus, right? What if we used campus level jobs as professional skill building? That's a whole initiative that we've made some investments in. I have huge belief in this because there's no one in this room that's not employing students at your institution. Everyone is. What if those got repurposed? So then you've got campus jobs, you've got paid internships. Then you start to think about what other experiences can we use in that same way? Because this is the sort of thing that really can help transform lives. And I think there are a number of areas along these lines that really will make a difference if we can make them more systematic.
That's great. So let's internships. Let's go through the student life experience. I know for me, when I went to career services at my undergraduate college, about May of my senior year, and faced the daunting prospect of having to do a resume and having to sign up for all of these interviews, I immediately decided to go to graduate school. And so here I am. You've also been doing work and thinking about career services.
So how many people in this room went to the Career Center? Oh, we didn't have one. This is actually a pretty good showing. Somewhere around a third, maybe somebody said we didn't have one, right? Generally, was that located anywhere convenient or embedded in your day-to-day experience?
Could you even find it on the map?
Yeah. Could you find it? Did you know what to ask when you got there? All these things, right? So we would collectively agree, like, let's imagine now this is our day to help Ted, right? If we were redesigning that experience for Ted, what did you major in, Ted, as an undergraduate?
History and economics.
All right, history and economics. And where did you go as an undergrad?
Stanford.
He doesn't want to say. We're going to force it out of him. Us public university people, we can't.
But it's a junior university, Leland Stanford Junior.
Yes,
Get credit.
yes, indeed. Okay, so what would be a better way to design that, do you think? If the earth were scorched and we were starting over, how would you design career services? What would you do? When is the right time for somebody to get there? Freshman year, you bet. Excellent idea, because you want to get everybody, right? So place that sort of career guidance where students are at the beginning of their experience. I think somebody might have said orientation. Did somebody say that? Yeah. How about it? What do you think would happen if we said to students, wow, you're interested in this broad area. Maybe it's health, maybe it's business. Let's look at what actually happened to people who came to this institution 5 years after they finished, or, where are they now? Where do they work? What do they earn? What's the trajectory you might expect if you pursue that path? I mean, there's just so many things that could change if we flip this, right? And what about faculty? There must be lots of faculty folks in here. Is there a role to think about career in curriculum? How could we mobilize more people? Just like the movement on retention, which really, retention is everybody, right? What if we did the same thing with sort of thinking about, where could I go with this path of study? What are my options? What could I pursue? What will likely happen to me? Where are people like me who did this? Where are they 10 years later? It's a really different transformational kind of way of thinking. I hope we get to do that work at Strata. We're working on cooking it up right now. So I love the idea about the residence hall and first-year students. Yeah.
So the reason that the Career Center is often in a shed behind the training facility for the football team is because the faculty wants it right there.
Yeah.
Because they want to have nothing to do with this idea that that they buy in completely often to the binary that you mentioned. Yeah. How can we help faculty think about career services in a new way that helps them unbinary themselves?
Yeah. So, how many people in here are faculty? Okay. Or were. All right. So, I'm guessing you don't agree with Ted. Tell me that you agree with him or you don't agree with him. Do you think
How many agree with that? Faculty
that
would rather.
faculty don't want to be part of this. It is changing. I think we could win people over. I think we could, I think if we equipped people with a few more tools, that's probably one piece, right? Like, how would I do this? What are some of the ways I could talk about career when I'm teaching Psych 101 or Econ?
It changes when they have teenage children.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah.
You see it all of a sudden.
Their own experience, right? So I do believe.
That's a whole different
Yeah.
project, by the way, and I'm not sure we should spend a lot of time there. Yeah.
But it's so true though that if you stripped away every other thing at universities, everything, what's the one thing left standing? Everybody participates in class in some way. That is at the end of the day the essence. So if you want to reach everybody in a more ubiquitous way, you cannot ignore that in the classroom and in the academic enterprise and experience. And for the most part, you absolutely will not get 100% of a faculty to be part of this. But I bet you can get a critical mass that will want to do it and be part of it in any institution. And maybe it would be smart to really start building this with the first year. That, there's about a dozen classes that account for 80% of first-year student enrollment. Why not start there? And a lot of places, those are your most engaged, active, sometimes great teachers. That's who I'd start working with. I could imagine designing this thing in a way that puts some of that content in that first econ class or that first history class, because that would be the way where most of the time students that, all of us know this, that we're like arts and science people, you'd read those painful senior surveys where students would say, my gen eds were the worthless part of my education. But when you ask them 5 and 10 years later, suddenly those escalated to be the most valuable part of their education. So something about being able to connect meaning and purpose and career and job to those classes would probably be a huge game changer.
So you mentioned those surveys. Another area of work for you all is being clearer-eyed at every level about the student experience and how students express their feelings about that student experience. You've been doing this for a couple of years now, a number of different instruments. What are we learning about today's students?
So quite remarkable things about today's students, and this I think would be a great for everyone in this room, wherever you are, whether it's in a leadership role, in your community, in an activity, at TIAA, at Fidelity, wherever you at ACE, the people you encounter. If I were quoting my good research colleague Dave Clayton, he would say, when we ask people what they're looking for through education after high school, they would say they want the opportunity to be anything, but the certainty that educational experience will deliver something concrete for them. So it's really very, very powerful. People want to know that this is going to be worth it, that the media have really convinced people to be very afraid of debt, that higher education costs are out of control, that this might not deliver value for them. So what people are looking for is the certainty that there will be something on the other side of this that leads me to economic mobility and stability for my family. Absolutely. But people don't want a dead end, which is such a great news for us, because I think what we believe we do is help people make the career trajectory. But I want all of us to take that to heart. That sort of saying this will all work out, it's great to pursue this program, it's probably not going to win the day for the next phase of higher education leadership. I think we should take that seriously, that people's aspirations are the certainty that this path will deliver something for me in meaningful, purposeful work where I can support myself and my family, and the opportunity to continue to develop in my career. And that's sort of it in a nutshell.
So we're kind of looking at the old story was academic learning and career were like train tracks. And if you looked far enough, they would connect. And what I hear you saying is we need to do the railroad ties. And we need to do it early, and we need to do it often, and we need to do it in a way makes sense to students and their families.
And none of it takes away from preparing people to create their fifth job, to have
Right.
this incredibly rich life. None of it detracts from that in any way.
So this is an ACE ad, pardon me, but we're really beginning to focus more and more on data and more on the student experience within our institutions. So we've partnered now with UCLA to take over the Harry surveys, the freshman survey, so that you'll be getting the next freshman survey. And it's going to be, we hope, much broader, focused on community colleges, certificate programs, other things that students do when they're involved in our institutions. So we've got career services, we've got a focus on internships, we've got an ongoing robust research program about today's college student. What else is in? I mean, you're in the third lap of a mile run on a strategic plan for Strata. What's that going to look like?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, I would say, what is Strata all about? We are a national nonprofit focused on creating more equitable pathways to opportunity through post-secondary ed. Really trying to drive toward what are the investments we can make that could help support system change. So trying to think about big scale influence. That's going to take us to policy and advocacy, right? Strategic communications, big solutions, clusters of institutions that want to remake their career centers, for example. There's a few other things. We talked about what I'll put in this sort of coaching pillar, that every single student should have that kind of education to career guidance early. That's one of our areas of focus. Another one is work-based learning, the internship focus. Another one those are two under my purview, and another one is affordability. This issue of what can we do to support controlling costs and also to help students find their paths and even to perceive and understand what actual cost will be. Affordability is a big element of the agenda. There's two other pillars and areas of focus in Strata's emphasis, and one is better data. We want to advocate for more clear and transparent data on what outcomes people can expect from education, but also on just large data systems and your own ability to access what happens to your students after they leave. So better data. And then the other one is a stronger alignment to employers. And this, I think, is in a way the hardest and maybe the most innovative for a nonprofit to take on. As a president, I found this rather frustrating. So it's kind of ironic that I would find myself in this job where now I'm advocating for alignment to employers. But in Salt Lake City, at the University of Utah, really booming economy, lots of jobs, also very growing lack of affordability. So like housing costs up, attractive place to live, beautiful climate, beautiful outdoors. I spent a lot of time. I visited every county, talked to lots of employers. The trick of this business is what an employer tells you they want and need varies drastically depending on who you're talking to. You go to Adobe, large national company, international company, they'll say, we need more diversity and we need just smart people who can think and solve problems. We'll teach them the business, but we're creating and selling products for the world. We got to have more people who can do that. Then you go to a smaller startup, they'd say, oh, no. We got to have people who can code and add value to tomorrow. We have no time to teach anybody anything. I'm like, well, now, what am I supposed to do here? How do I take this back to action on a campus? So I think where Strata's headed is to say, we've got to dial up. Like, what are major labor market trends and needs? How do we prepare people for the jobs of today and tomorrow? Not in a discipline-specific way. So I'll give you an example of that. We have I think this is the most exciting project, and it's all cooked up by the University of Texas system to say we can see what happens to our students. Texas has amazing program-level data on employment and earnings for every graduate of every program from every institution in their state. Phenomenal. And they could say, wow, we've got some areas of our campus where students are really struggling to get employed and to make a middle income wage. What if we took those programs and offered every student in those programs an industry certificate in addition to their degree? So we could have a student in sociology, I'll just pick that hypothetically, and say those students could also get a data analytics certificate from Google, a Microsoft certificate of different, that is in a demand in their area. And can we help those students pursue their core interest and be job ready? So because there's employer demand for those credentials in their region. A very interesting project, but that kind of alignment to employers that's kind of hard to execute for most individuals in a leadership job.
But again, it's refusing to do the either or. And saying you can be an
both
art
and,
history
yeah.
major and get 3 Google certificates.
Yes.
And as Burning Glass tells us, that will increase your employability.
Yes, and the
But
experiment's
many
running at a big scale, because it's Texas. So we shall see what happens with that experiment. Others are trying to emulate it. Arizona State has a similar kind of effort with jobs on campus and trying to produce better outcomes for students. So, but that employer alignment is, I think, the hardest one. So we shall see.
So 2 last questions. So I'm inspired. I'm ready to go out and go to work tomorrow and really work hard on this stuff. This is a room full of people who either are or are contemplating being presidents. And we read stories about why would anyone with a brain think about doing this job. You talked about it earlier, and Donna certainly talked about the importance of our institutions and leadership, but make the pitch.
So I think the most important thing for everyone to do as you get ready to take off tonight is to say, why am I here? What motivates me? And why did I come to this all day today? What challenges do I see around me where I want to make a difference? There has never been a more important time, or I personally think a more expansive opportunity. I first became a dean, an arts and science dean at my beloved University of Illinois in 2008. Does anybody remember 2008? Am I the only old person here? Okay, so what was happening in 2008? Major international financial crisis. And that college had a $25 million structural deficit. Like, what fool takes that job? You got to ask yourself, right? I'll tell you what, it was the best in my whole career. I loved that job most because there was an urgency and a real need and an incredible opportunity to make a difference. And wonderful, wonderful people that wanted to work with me and help me solve that structural deficit and make a better future for that super important college at that institution. So very similar to now, great opportunity, great privilege to lead. Don't believe that stuff when people say, you couldn't pay me enough to be someone. Wasn't that one of the titles? You couldn't pay me enough to be college president. It's an incredible privilege. It is an incredible privilege, and you never want to forget that. People are putting their trust in you. It's a big deal. Do it.
What gives you hope?
Well, things like this give me hope. The fact that there are wonderful, talented people in this room that want to be part of it. I would also say, whenever you talk to people whose lives have been transformed by higher education, it gives me, this works. This changes lives. The mission matters. The ideas, the creativity. And I love a good challenge. Like Ted tells me I can never get faculty to do something. That's like, for me, watch. I'm ready to go now. That gives me hope because I can find a lot more people that will come along, with a little bit of help and a little bit of opportunity and test things out and give it a go. So I'm inspired by both the need in the moment and the voices of people saying, I really have wanted this for me, for my family. Help me figure out how I can be part of some new version of the American dream that actually lives out the promise that we all hope for.
Please join me in thanking Ruth Watkins.